checking to make sure things are going the way they're supposed to. If you can see me, if you want to just give me a comment or something and let me know you can see me and that you can hear me, that would be appreciated. I'm looking down at my phone just to see if anything's going on down here. I can see myself, so I guess that's something. Okay, so I'm gonna get started. So my name is Angela. I am the face behind Fun and Forth. If you are watching the replay of this, thank you very much. And if you are here with me live, thank you to you as well. Today I want to talk to you about classroom setup. I've had a few different new teachers reach out to me about some questions, and they're just feeling a little bit overwhelmed with things. So I'm hoping that today I can kind of guide you through some steps so that you feel like you are confident and ready for your new school year. So I'm just going to switch my screen over here. Okay, so hopefully I should be down at the bottom in a little bubble. But we're gonna get going. So again, if you're just jumping on, I'm Angela from Fun and Forth, and this is Classroom Setup for Success. All right, so if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay. I want to start off by saying you are not alone. I found this little meme online, which I think kind of sums things up perfectly. It says actual footage of a teacher trying to keep on top of their workload, and that's me right there. I definitely feel like that quite often. I want you to know that that is not a feeling you are alone in having. So we're going to tackle this together so that you can feel confident and ready to teach when your new school year comes. The other thing I kind of want to preface this by saying is really stressing the importance of you doing you. So today I'm going to tell you a lot of what works for me and what's worked in my experience, but I completely recognize that we all have different styles, we have different resources available to us, and different students. So some of the things that I'm saying today might really not be applicable to you, but hopefully most of the things are. And I want to begin by just showing you my classroom and how it's changed over the years. So I actually couldn't find a picture of my very first classroom. So this is my second classroom that you are looking at. I think right away you'll notice my bright yellow wall. When I walked into this room, I hated that wall. But in the end, I ended up loving that wall, and I would say it's probably my most favorite feature of that space. But you'll see that, I think this was probably about 8 years ago, I was teaching in a rural school. At that time I had individual student desks. They weren't labeled at the point of this picture, but my kids definitely had assigned seating, so they had a place in the room to be. You'll see in the back corner that I sewed a curtain and kind of hid my hideous open shelving because I didn't like the way my binders were all over the place. All of my boards were done in that bright blue, and I kind of had a bit of an owl theme going on at that time. So then I switched schools, and this is what my room looked like there. So I still had my owls, and kept the blue, but in kind of different ways. My bulletin boards went to a black background, kind of upped my trim a little bit. My alphabet changed. I still had individual student desks. I still had assigned seating. It was in this classroom that I did switch over to what I currently do, which is flexible seating. But at that time, I had those individual student desks. And then my most recent space is right here. So this is where I spent my last 3 years teaching. I had fully flexible seating in this classroom, so lots of different desk and table designs, lots of different heights. I said goodbye to the owls in this room, and I went for just black and rainbow. But I guess my point in showing you these is that I want you to know that your style is going to change over time, and it takes a long time to kind of build your room up to what you want it to be. It's not an overnight process. Um, different spaces have different challenges and limitations. So just keep those things in mind as we're talking today. That setting up your classroom definitely is a process that is not going to happen just in one setup. Okay, before you do anything in your classroom, I have some things that I want you to consider. The first thing I want you to consider is, what are you starting with, and what furniture and what supplies do you have that are available to you? So talking about the bigger pieces first, are you looking at desks, tables, a combination of both? And what do you want your students to have? So do you want to have the more traditional assigned seating where students have a desk that is theirs? Do you want to have choice seating, which in my opinion is you let your students choose where they go, but most of your furniture is really the same type of furniture? Or do you want to have flexible seating where you've got lots of different seating options and students can choose where they go? I do really recommend, if you are a first year teacher, that you might want to consider sticking with the assigned seating. I just feel like flexible seating kind of adds another layer to your management piece, and if you're feeling like maybe from the get-go that's not really quite strong yet, then assigned seating might be the way that you want to go, and you can add in that piece of flexible seating later. Again, that's totally up to you, but just something that I found when I integrated it in was, it was just that one more piece to manage. So think about what you have, and then also think about, is there other places in the school where there's furniture being stored that you might have access to? So maybe there is some back room where all the teachers have put kind of their reject furniture, and those are the pieces that you might love to have. So be sure to ask and see if there's some things beyond what's in the classroom when you get it that you could maybe utilize as well. Then I want you to think about your teacher desk. So with that, some teachers have kind of a really big large desk. The room I'm moving into has a big large desk that I'm asking for it to leave. For me, I just felt like I didn't sit at my desk. It really was only holding my tape and my stapler and my day book, and so it didn't make sense for me to have that big desk when I wasn't really using it. It was taking up too much space for me. So if you go onto my website and you click on classroom up at the top, you can kind of go through a whole classroom tour of my most recent classroom, and you'll notice my teacher desk is this little teal desk. It's pushed up in the corner facing the wall, and that works for me because, like I said, it's really just holding my things. If I wanted to do my marking there, then maybe I would want a bigger space, but I like to spread out and use different areas of my room, or even do those things at home. So it didn't make sense to me. So think about, for you, how much time you're going to be spending at a desk like that, if that's something you want to keep in your room or not. The next thing to talk about is rainbow tables. If you're watching from the US, I think that they are called kidney tables there. Obviously rounded, kind of shaped like a rainbow is what I'm talking about. I use my rainbow table all the time. I use it for small group instruction. I use it for one-to-one conferencing, either in math or reading or writing. And I also use it as just a piece of seating during my with my flexible seating. So for me, even though it was a large piece of furniture, it's really well utilized in my room. It was worth the space. But I do know a lot of teachers who find they don't utilize them. So if that's something in your space you think that you're not going to use, then you might want to see if there's a place that can go to. And again, if you don't have one, you want to ask around and see if that's something you can get your hands on, because for me, I do really make good use of that. Next thing to think about in terms of furniture is a carpet. I know that sometimes when you're talking about grade 4 age, teachers find having a carpet in the classroom maybe a little bit unusual. I really feel like a carpet adds kind of another layer of that homey, more comforting piece. My kids use it all the time. We use it for a morning meeting place. We use it during quiet reading, for work time. Kids will lay down with a clipboard. But you got to think about if you have the space for it and the size of carpet that you want. My carpet is large. It's, I think, 8 by 10. It might even be a little bit larger than that. But it does take up a lot of room, and it was pretty pricey to buy. So if you are coming into a classroom that doesn't have a carpet and you want a carpet, I recommend that you ask your administration if they've got some funds for that, or maybe attend a PAC meeting or write them a letter and ask the parent group if they could purchase you something like that, because they can definitely be pricey if you have to buy them on your own. Okay, next is storage and shelving. It's kind of one of those things teachers are always talking about not having enough of. So be looking around your room and think about what's going to go where, and are you going to have enough places for everything. So again, hopefully that's not something you have to purchase, but if it is, then you need to do your best to ask and see what you can get your hands on, so that you're not spending too much of your own space. Again, referencing back to that previous classroom where I had that open shelving, and I chose to cover it over with a curtain so I didn't have to look at everything all disorganized. But you do want to be considering the type of storage and shelving that you have, what's going on open shelving, what's going on closed shelving, and what's going to work for the resources you have and how frequently they're going to be accessed. Next on the list is technology. So making sure that everything that you have in the room, again, is something you're going to use. I know a couple of times in the past I've come into a classroom and they've had an overhead projector, which is just not something I've wanted to use myself. So that was something I said goodbye to. I gave it to some other people who love to make good use of it. But in addition, make sure that every piece of technology in your room that you have is something that you know how to work. And if you don't know how to work, see if there is somebody from tech services who you can make an appointment with to show you, so that you can make really good use of everything you have. If you're fortunate to have some iPads in the classroom, or maybe some Chromebooks, then you want to be thinking as well about maybe creating a little technology station where the kids can access those things, and how they can best access those things so that they stay safe and organized. The cords aren't being tangled up and that sort of thing. Next on the list here is bulletin boards. So the placement of your bulletin boards in your room might help you to decide where or where not your furniture is going to go. So an example is, if you want to do a bulletin board up with your reading strategies, then probably you want to have your rainbow table near that. So when you're doing your guided reading lessons, you can reference to those, and they're right there for you. And you're not having your kids be like, oh, way over there across the room, remember those? So thinking about that kind of setup and how those things need to be together. And in with bulletin boards, I might even add whiteboards. And so where your whiteboards are, you probably want to have some open space out in front as well. The last thing here is manipulatives. So I really encourage you to go through what you have in your classroom and see if you've got too much of something, or maybe something, again, you don't know how to use or think you won't use, and put things back into storage. There's no sense in keeping them in your cupboard space if you know you're not going to use them, or if you know you've got far too much of them. And on the alternate side of that, if there's something that you're lacking and it is in storage somewhere in the school, then you need to go and get that and make sure that it comes into your room too. Okay, so that's it for furniture and supplies to consider. Another thing to consider, though, is what you want your classroom space to feel like, look like, and what you want your dream space to be. I'm not saying you're going to get your dream space. It definitely takes time to get that. But it's really good to have that vision before you begin of what you wish for, so that as you're planning, you can kind of keep that in the back of your mind and it's going to help you to kind of come as close as you can. So with that, be thinking about your students and how you want them to be interacting with each other. Individual desks in rows is not going to serve you well if you want your students to be doing a lot of collaborative project-based work. So if you are thinking you want to do more of that collaboration, then having tables or desks pushed into groups is probably your best bet. If you know that you're going to be doing a whole lot of whole class discussion, then maybe you want to arrange your desks into a U shape. The nice thing about this though is that that type of furniture moves and moves fairly easily, so you don't really need to have those things set in stone. What I really think you should consider in the first few days is the activities you'll be doing then, and set your room up for those first few days of school. So I know some teachers like to push the desks together so that kids can have an opportunity to chat a bit more than they might through the rest of the year, to kind of build those friend groups and things. Some people like to keep them in partners because they have a lot of individual partner activities planned in the first few days. And I know some teachers who like to push the desks straight to the side because they're doing a lot of community building games and they want the space. So think about what you're doing in those first few days with how you set up your furniture for school startup. The next thing here I have is a designated space for your class library. So I know that if you're looking online at some classrooms, you're going to see like a designated classroom library space with the carpet and the pillows and the lamps and maybe some pieces of furniture that are turned so that it's kind of leading people in almost as if it's another room within the room. If that's something that you have a large enough classroom to do, you may want to. For me, I didn't feel like I had the space for that. So you'll notice, again, if you go to the website and go through my classroom tour, that I've got my class library just on 2 bookshelves, and really they're in the place that they're in because it's where I felt that they fit with all the built-in furniture and the windows in the room. There's not a spot right in front where kids can sit and read. That's elsewhere in the space. So you have to think about what's going to work within the limitations of your room for you. Lighting is next on my list, and that's because I encourage you to have some well-lit and dimly lit areas in your space. This is going to be great for certain lessons that you might do. So for example, in art, maybe you need to have the lights down low for something. One of my science lessons is around motions of the earth and moon, so we'll dim the lights and those sorts of things and use a lamp to represent the sun. But beyond that, just having the opportunity to turn off those harsh overhead lights and use some softer lighting is just really helpful for calming your students and maybe even creating a specific calm down place. So think about how you can do that, especially if you're not fortunate enough to have some really big windows to get that natural light in. Think about some other ways you can play with lighting that are not as harsh as the overheads. And the next thing you're going to hear me talk about a lot today is space to move. So in everything that you do, you want to be considering, do we have enough space to move around in here? Are we going to be crashing into each other, bumping chairs? In every single piece of your planning, think about flow, think about space. Okay, so are you ready for the steps? I have broken it down, I think, into 6 steps. And I kind of waffle back and forth between step 1 and step 2, which one should be the first one. But I went with step 1 being to make a map. So here's an example of a map that I drew for a previous classroom. It's a total quick sketch of different pieces of furniture. You'll notice that I numbered off how many people I felt could sit where, and I kind of gave it some labels, but it's super simple. It didn't take me more than 10 minutes to draw this out. The reason I recommend that you map is because it really helps you to organize your space without having to haul things around. You're going to be hauling things around anyways, I guarantee it, but you might as well try and reduce the amount of time that you haul things about by mapping it first. So I recommend you start with your bigger areas. When I created this map, I probably started with the carpet first and where that would go, then the rainbow table, and maybe the trapezoid tables, those bigger pieces first, and then I would have filled in with the individual desks and some other pieces because they are smaller and easier to kind of tuck in different locations. Again, talking about that flow, consider your high traffic areas. So where's the pencil sharpener? Where are the garbage cans? Where's the sink? Where are kids going to be going to frequently? Where's the hand-in bin? And make sure that those spots are open. The last thing you want is kids constantly saying, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, as they make their way to the pencil sharpener all day. And ensure that your student workspaces are all visible to you. I find in our district, especially with the older classrooms, the furniture wasn't built into the walls. So you have these really great opportunities to take pieces of furniture out from the wall and create these little defined spaces. But sometimes what I see happen is workspaces created where teachers don't have visuals on kids. So make sure that when you are creating your space, you have a visual on your students, all of your students, at all times as best that you can. And then the last thing I have here, especially for the safety factor, is ensure that your doors and windows are unobstructed. So making sure that those fire exits are available to you at all times. Okay, step 2, which I thought kind of could have been step 1, is to get cleaning. It is almost a guarantee that when you come into your new classroom, there are going to be things in there that you don't know what they are, you don't know why they're there, you don't want them. So it's really important that you set aside some time to clean that space. Here's a picture I found of me from probably 7 or 8 years ago where I came into a room and the teacher had been ill, and so she'd left on a medical leave. Another person came in temporarily, and when I got the classroom, it just hadn't been unpacked, I guess you could say. She hadn't taken her things with her, and there was just so much in that room that I knew didn't fit my teaching style or that I didn't want. So you'll see, and I'm holding a box of Fruit Loops. I think there might have actually been some bugs crawling around in that. Like, that was something I did not want in my room at all. Goodbye. So make sure you take that time to go through things. Get prepared to get dirty. You're probably going to find something gross like the buggy Fruit Loops, and really spend time going through everything. There's probably going to be lots to sort through, but it's important that you know what you're coming into your room with. And I know it can be tempting, especially if you're a new teacher and you really don't have a lot of your own things yet, to say, oh, I want to keep it, I'm not sure if I'll need this or not. Or if you get your job at the last minute and so you just kind of want to push those things to the back and, oh, I'll deal with them later. But this process of cleaning things and sorting through things is so valuable, and I really urge you to not skip it because it's going to let you know what's going on in your room. Okay, step 3 is to organize. And the very first thing I have here is what can you organize at home? So you might not have access to your classroom right away. Maybe you have to wait for some custodians to clean things. Or maybe you just have to wait. Maybe there's a rule you can't get in until a certain date or something. So you don't want to be kind of holding off to that moment necessarily. I know some people, especially if it's your first job, you're really eager to get in there and you're gathering things and you've got a room in your house that you're kind of shoving it all into. So if you can, organize what you can at home. It's easy to be peeling label stickers off of bins and things while you're watching Netflix or sorting through your class library. Do all those pieces at home when you in the evenings, so that way you're at home with your people. We're in our classroom so much as it is that if there's pieces you can do at home, do them. My biggest organization tip is to make sure you have defined places for everything. And I mean everything. And not just the stuff the students use, but the things you use too, especially though the things the students are using, because you want them to get back to where they belong. And if the space for it isn't defined, it's not going to. So clear labels are really key in that, and I recommend that your labeling, even at the intermediate level, isn't just words. It's got some sort of picture clue on it as well. These visual clues, they're going to be more accessible to all of your learners, but also it's just a quicker form of communication to be looking at pictures. And let's face it, kids don't necessarily take the time to read a label, but if they can see that picture coming at them, that's going to help them to make sure the scissors go back in the scissor bin, the pens go back in the pen bin, that kind of thing, because we take so much time to put it all where we want it to stay that way. So use that clear labeling with the words, with the picture as a step to help you. Different types of supplies are going to require different types of storage. The dollar store is going to be your friend in storage. I recommend that you go there to pick things up as opposed to other places, just because you can get more bang for your buck, and really it is fairly sturdy. It is going to last a decent amount of time. So especially in the beginning, think about the dollar store as an option for you to get the organizational bins that you need. I don't want to spend too much time about talking about different kinds of bins, because I have recently written this blog post about organizing your classroom with bins and containers. So if you head over to my blog, funandforth.ca, there's a blog tab just at the top, and you scroll down a little bit. I think it's only two or three posts back. But through this, I go through the bins I use for my class library, the bins I use for crafting supplies, math manipulatives, task cards, all of those sorts of things, and what works best for me. I tell you where I bought them and why I use what I use. One thing I will say now, though, is you'll notice in that picture, the bottom bins are clear. As much as you can, I recommend buying clear bins, just like that visual picture. It's going to help you, or help the kids rather, get things back where they belong. So if you feel like you need some more steps or tips about organization, that's a blog post I definitely recommend you check out. Step 4 is to rearrange. So we're at a point now where we have gone through everything in the room, we've cleaned, we've organized, we've kind of unpacked, we've made that map and set the furniture out where we think it goes. Now you're going to stand back. Once again, you're going to consider that flow. Is there room to walk? And what I like to do is kind of pull all the chairs out to pretend that there's bodies in them, and make sure I can get through things. So as if I was monitoring my classroom and going student to student and checking in with them. Do I have room to get in between? Do other students have room to get in between? And if we don't, then we need to move some things around. Then, do you have enough seating? If you are using assigned seating, I would probably recommend having enough desks for, of course, all your students, and then one or two more. You never know when it's going to be that morning where out of the blue you get a new student, so you want to be ready for them. But also sometimes kids just need a break and need a space away from everyone else. So I would have at least one more extra space in my room. For flexible seating though, I'd like to have maybe 5 or so extra spots, because the last thing you want is for the only space available in the room to be one that doesn't work with a student's learning needs. So having those extra spaces is going to ensure that there is enough room for everyone in their needs for that activity at the time. And I've said this before too, but check one more time. Do you have too much or not enough of something? If you've got too much of something, you know you're not going to use it, then get it out of your room. You don't need it taking up space. Or if you're lacking something, do what you can to bring it in your room. Step 5 is, I think, everyone's favorite step. It's the step that they want to start with. Our step 5 here is to decorate. Here, my biggest tip for you would be cohesiveness. Cohesiveness is crucial. So I really encourage you to, as much as you can, consider using similar colors, similar types of bins, and keeping things the same just because it's less of a sensory overwhelm. So here's a picture of a small space in my previous classroom. You'll see that that bulletin board has got black fabric on it. All of my boards have that same black fabric. And even though I've got a couple of different bulletin border trims going on there, I have those same trims on all of my boards. Now, if I could find a picture for you of my first classroom, that room had a ton of bulletin boards, and I think I probably used every single color on the bulletin board paper roll on my boards. Every single one was a different color. It was like a patchwork circus in there. I was just really excited to try them all out. But you know, reflecting back, I just feel like there was too many colors going on, and it was probably a little bit overwhelming for some learners. So again, I encourage you to pick 2 or 3 kind of key colors that you are repeating throughout your space. Stick with them as much as you can for everything. My next tip is to be purposeful in your decor. I'm going to contradict that a little bit here by saying, you'll see in that picture, I do have some kind of pom-poms and things hanging in the corner. Probably those aren't very purposeful. The only purpose they serve is that they make me happy. But with everything else in my room, it only goes on the walls if it serves a purpose. If it doesn't serve a purpose, I don't put it up. So you might want to put up a whole bunch of different anchor charts and things because you think they're going to help your students, but it can get to a point where it's just overwhelming, everything kind of becomes a blur, and they're not using any of it. So be purposeful in what you put up. And another tip I have is to try and evenly represent the subject areas in the decor that you put up. A few years in, I kind of felt like everything I was putting on my walls was really language arts based. I did have a number line for math, but I didn't really have any other supports. It was mostly all language arts, so an alphabet and my genre posters and punctuation things, a cursive alphabet, but there wasn't really a lot of math stuff on my walls. So that was something I made an effort to change. And so I have this space that is kind of more math designated now with some different supports, and I changed out my alphabet to be a math alphabet as well, just to integrate the two. So try and step back and look at what you've got and see if you are representing your especially core subjects as evenly as you possibly can. Another thing to stress is that adding as you go is okay. I definitely understand that need to want to have everything up and everything perfect for day one. But what I'm learning over time is that adding things with your students in the space is not only okay, it actually can be really helpful to them. So for example, looking at this math space, maybe I just had the fabric and the bulletin board border up for day one, and then as I'm doing kind of some number sense lessons in the beginning of the year, we add the number line, we refer to it, I say to the kids the next day, hey look, did you notice I added this? And then it becomes a helpful tool that they're going to reference because they feel like they were a part of adding it up there, even though they weren't with me after school when I got the ladder and the stapler and stuck it up there. Just the fact that that change happened when they were in this space, it becomes more of a meaningful tool for them. So don't feel like you have to rush to get everything up. It's okay to add things as you go. The other thing that I want to encourage you to do is to avoid buying as much as you can. It can get really expensive setting up a classroom. So ask around. Your friends, your family, your coworkers, they might all be able to donate some materials, supplies, or even their time. You just have to ask them. I think that lots of people want to help you, they just don't know how to help you. So reaching out and asking, they'll be more than thrilled to do what they can for you. Step 6 is our final step. We are nearing the end here. Review, revise, adjust. It is so important that you be okay with adjusting. You're going to know within those first few days what's working for you, what's not working for you, what's not working for your students. And it can feel like I've spent so much time, I don't want to change anything because it was so much work, but you have to be okay with adjusting because it's so important that your space works for you and works for your students. And what might work one year with one group of kids might not work the next. You might need to make some changes. But especially if it's a new space for you or if you're still learning your teaching style, you're likely going to find parts of your space that just don't work for you, or that you need to change as your style and the needs in your room change as well. So just be open to kind of keeping that decor and organization evolving all the time. So that brings us to the end of things here. Thank you so much for those of you who watched with me, and if you're watching the replay, again, thank you to you too. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I would love to chat with you. Or if you want to do something a bit more privately, you can reach out to me. My email address is there. It's angela@funandforth.ca. And you can always get more inspiration on my website, funandforth.ca. So again, thank you so much to you for spending this time with me today. I really hope that you found it valuable. I'm going to be coming back next week at the same time, so next Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. And next week I'm going to talk about classroom libraries. So if you have any questions for that you want me to tackle next week, you can always throw those in the comments here or email me as well. So again, thank you so much. I'm Angela. I really appreciate you being with me today, and I'll see you next week.